Good afternoon. Today is the 17th of January and I'm pleased to say that my phone that I've been recording this YouTube channel on, apart from Tweed Jacket Reviews, since November 2019 has miraculously come back to life, and you're being recorded on it right now. You could probably see the difference in the sharpness and colour from the temporary camera that I was using. So I now will be able to show you the footage that we thought was lost from when Mr. Coleman investigated a problem on the V45 V6 and the cooling system. It's not the best footage of the sound quality is not particularly good, but it is here and I managed to resurrect it, so I'm very thankful for that. Yes, a miraculous divine intervention, I think, there. Got a couple of other things to discuss today before that, though. One of them is that we are doing another question and answer session on Wednesday, which as far as I remember, is the 20th of January. And so please put your questions in the comment section below. A lot of you who were on the quiz on Saturday night, which was an absolute disaster. I do apologise for that. A lot of the things that happened were completely beyond my control. Were, asking questions and stuff. Please put your questions in the comment section below. I can't possibly keep up with all of them to cover them on Wednesday if we don't do that. So just put those in the comment section below, then we'll answer those on Wednesday. So as quickly as possible, if that's all right, so we don't miss any. The other thing I want to talk about as well is actually something that I wanted to discuss for some time, and it follows on from a lot of the videos that have been on this channel over the last couple of years, and that is to do with the fact that they want to introduce yet another charge for driving in London. Now, this time I've taken the information from an industry publication called Highways Magazine, but I also checked this on Autocar, so I believe this to be reasonably accurate. I do like to check my sources if I can, at least double or triple. And this is a story that's about a month old. It's just not been something that I've been able to get round to for the last little while. But what has happened is that in addition to the congestion charge and also the London ultra emission zone, at the moment they're the same thing, but they have two separate charges, because in October this year, the ultra emission zone is being extended from the current boundary of the congestion charge zone to the North and South Circuit here in London. So this is why they have two separate charges. Of course, some cars are compliant with the ultra emission zone. Those are generally cars, if they're petrol, they're made after 2006. And if they are, after 2005 for petrols, because it's 1st January 2006 with Euro 4 emissions, or diesels, it's after September 2015 at Euro 6 diesels that are exempt from the ultra low emission zone. And then any sort of classic car, I think it's anything pre 1981 is also exempt from the ultra low emission zone, and that will continue going forward at the moment anyway, unless they change it. Congestion charge, obviously you will know about that. It's been around for a long time. It's almost 20 years now, and gradually the list of vehicles that are exempt from the congestion charge zone, which hasn't changed since 2011, it's the last time they changed it, is shrinking. It used to be, hybrids were exempt and things like that, but that's not the case anymore. This is another thing in addition to it, and if I just read a little bit of his article from 16th of December 2020, Sadiq Khan has threatened to introduce a charge of £3.50 a day for drivers coming into the capital if ministers do not play fair over vehicle excise duty, otherwise known as road tax. He's asked the government to allow the capital, i.e. London, to keep the road tax from London-based drivers. Now, City Hall is where the Mayor of London is based, I believe, yes, they want to do this really because the public transport in London has been very much affected by the current pandemic that we're currently in. I said current twice, I do apologise. So because of what's going on in the world at the moment, passenger numbers are really down on TfL services and buses and trains and the tube and DLR and things like that. So they want to recoup the money from drivers, which has also been done previously when they suspended the ultra emission zone and congestion charge zone in March 2020 and then brought it back in June 2020, but not only actually brought it back from what it was before, but actually made both of those things 24 hours a day and charged motorists more. So they're trying to make up the loss of fares from motorists, which I think, from what I've seen on this channel, a lot of the viewers really don't like that. They don't think we should be doing that. Whether or not this is the right thing to do, I'm not really going to say, but I know a lot of you are against this. So yeah, I think they're going to be investigating a Greater London Boundary Charge. That's what it's going to be called, this charge for people who live outside London to drive into the city. If I'd still lived in Epsom, which I did for a long time, this would have applied to me. So within about 2 miles of where we used to live, we would have crossed over to the border. It's actually at Tolworth, the way we would go in, and then I would be paying £3.50 a day for living in Surrey, and not London, for loads of reasons that we used to go in there. Loads of reasons, not only just for work and other things, seeing friends, going to B&Q, whatever. £3.50 a day it would have been for me to do this. Now, this is not something that's definite. It's not something that will happen immediately. There are 1.3 million trips in vehicles every day from outside London into the capital. Apparently, I don't know when that figure was taken, probably a pre-pandemic one. And it's going to take at least 2 years to introduce this if it happens. Now, £500 million is raised from road tax VED within London every year. And basically, City Hall, where the mayor is based, he says that they should keep that. And if the ministers don't allow him to do that in the government, then they want to introduce this road charge to fill this deficit of funding. That's essentially it. As Sadiq Khan has said, ministers have failed to play fair by Londoners when it comes to financing a world-renowned transport system. It's high time they did so. It's not fair on London, but our drivers should subsidise the rest of the country's roads and get nothing in return. If ministers aren't prepared to play fair, then we need to consider other options to address this. And apparently the report that this is sort of based upon reducing this new charge says that TfL has an annual funding gap of £2 billion. So 500 million would come very handy for them. So, as usual with this stuff, there we have very, very, very large number of videos about the congestion charge zone, the ultra-low emission zone, clean air zones in other cities in this country and in Europe on the channel. I'll put a link to the playlist below because there's an awful lot of them now. First video we made about the ultra emission zone was October 2018. So I do have quite a history of making videos about this, and sorry it's taken you so long to get this news through to you, but yes, in a few moments you'll be able to watch Mr. Coleman's handiwork, and we'll have the engine cover of the Rover off, and you can just see a little bit more of what the problem used to be with it before he fixed it. I can't promise anything. It's very difficult to film in the V of the V6 engine. Even with the engine cover off, it's very difficult. So just bear that in mind. But yes, please put your questions for the Q&A video in the description below. And yes, it's brilliant to have this phone working again. And thank you ever so much indeed once again for watching. So good afternoon. Today is the 9th of January. Mr. Coleman is here, although he's probably not going to speak too much, otherwise you'd have to take the microphone up, and it's about 5 metres long and it's a liable to trip over it. But this is the KV6 engine on my Rover 45. You can't really see what's happened other than if I put it there, you can actually see there's some coolant in the V of the engine. Now, when the thermostat housing actually failed back in July, when we picked up our Sanyong, the thermostat housing needs replacing. It's a very common failure on these engines, and the original one lasted 17 years. The plastic cover that goes on top of the engine is just on the ground there, because that's bolted down. but just to show you what's going on. We've just topped the cooling system up again. Mr. Coleman's been for a drive. Thank goodness for social bubbles, because we can do this kind of thing even though we're under lockdown. So he has identified a problem. Probably we need to upgrade the thermostat housing. It's not so much sort of failed, but underneath the new thermostat housing that we got, which is another plastic one, it's an aftermarket one, we had to do it right on the cheap at the time. There is an O-ring that's failed, and that's why the coolant is leaking out into there. That has been nipped up. That's why there's like a burning smell when I was driving around as well. So we've put that at the correct level because the engine's hot. It's up a bit at the moment, but that will go down. And it's okay for now, but I am going to have to get a metal thermostat housing, a more expensive one, and do the job again. As Mr. Coleman has said, you buy cheap, you buy twice. Yep. So that's really it. I will explain a little bit more later, but this is just a little segment that we're going to do now because Mr. Coleman's not got a lot of time today. But it's not the dreaded water pump, it's not the head gaskets, which would have been far more than the value of a car to fix. And so we're going to be okay for the bit, but we are going to have to do that thermostat housing again. When that happens, I don't know exactly, but because we're in lockdown, we will just not be using the car for any more than short journeys to go to the supermarket and things like that. So yes, that is the diagnosis of what's happened. And thank you again to Mr. Coleman, who is starting to put his tools away, I think.
Yes, soon we can't head back to the Midlands.
Indeed.